The dramatic arrest of a couple over the unprovoked stabbing of a teenager outside a Sydney supermarket. Private health insurance shake-up. How will it affect you? And Rhiannon Ifland conquers the world's hardest dive of volcanic rocks in Portugal.
This is NBN News with Paul Lobb.
Good evening. When hardened senior police officers walked into a family home today, nothing could prepare them for what they saw. 2 people lay dead inside. A third, slumped in the backyard, would die within minutes. NBN News has learnt the victims are a mother and her 2 children. A teenager who lives there too is now with police.
A quiet suburb in northeast Perth, now the centre of a complex murder investigation.
A senior homicide squad investigating officer said to me today that it is potentially the most horrific crime scene that he has ever been called to.
Police were alerted after a 19-year-old man left his Ellenbrook home and went to a local 7-Eleven and called 000.
The 3 deceased and the 19-year-old who's in police custody all resided at the same address.
A male and a female were found dead inside the home. Another female was in the yard in a critical condition. She died on the way to hospital.
It's a crime that I know will send shockwaves throughout the community of Western Australia.
A meticulous search is still being conducted around the family home. A pair of scissors found in the front yard.
I've been here for quite a while and never had anything like this, and then all of a sudden, there's a murder on your street.
I just heard a lot of screaming and yelling and a bit of fighting, and I don't know, a few moments later the cops flew past down there and headed up this way.
With 2 crime scenes and a shattered family, police now face a painstaking investigation as they try to unravel what went on and why. Eddie Meyer, NBN News.
Weighing up the cost versus benefit of private health insurance is a predicament most households face. The system is about to change though, making it more user-friendly, but with the risk of driving up prices.
For many Australians, buying health insurance can be a costly and confusing minefield.
I think I'm covered for if I hurt my knees.
I wish I did have it, but it's just too expensive.
A family can pay more than $4,800 a year, but across Australia, 13 million people have private health cover, with options available from 70,000 policies on the market. So the government says it's remodelling the system to make it easier for consumers to find out what they're paying for.
What everybody wants is to know what's in, what's out.
Policies will be defined in 4 tiers: basic, bronze, silver and gold. Cover for ovarian and breast cancer will be in the bronze category. Cancer will be in the bronze category. Pregnancy cover will require a gold level premium. There is scope for policies to be moved between the tiers, meaning costs could also change. But the Minister and health insurance providers say this overhaul won't make people pay more.
Our fundamental rule was no change in prices.
Not everyone accepts that will be the case.
People might find out that they're not actually covered for something, and in that process of upgrading their cover will obviously face an increase.
They're not designed to bring down the cost of private health insurance at all, and that's part of the problem.
But premiums are affected by annual rises. 3 months ago they went up on average almost 4% and will go up again in April. Labor wants to cap the rises of health insurance premiums at 2% across the board for 2 years. But there are concerns doing that could damage smaller providers, particularly ones in northern Tasmania, where there's a by-election battle.
You could force the smaller health funds and hospitals out of business as a result.
And that will drive prices up.
A 14-year-old schoolboy's quick thinking may have saved his big brother's life. NBN News has spoken to the mother of the teenager who was stabbed after allegedly being asked for a cigarette lighter outside a Sydney Woolworths. But the couple accused of the attack are claiming self-defence after a dramatic arrest just streets away from the incident.
Cornered in a suburban townhouse, a line of heavily armed officers make their move. Hiding inside, 2 suspects wanted over the vicious stabbing of a schoolboy.
Dogs, police, everything. It was just scary.
Under arrest, 29-year-old Jeremy Allen, who police allege pulled a knife on the teenager in the Woolworths car park at Balmain. Senseless violence that's left the 16-year-old's mother at a loss. How, why and who could cause her son so much pain?
I don't understand it at all. I don't know how anyone could harm a child, let alone someone they don't know.
It was a trip to the supermarket her teenage sons had made countless times before, when police alleged the 16-year-old was attacked, stabbed in the stomach and hand. His 14-year-old brother witnessing it all.
My other son did an amazing job. He's a very switched-on kid, and he held it together through that period, which was in calling the ambulance first. It probably saved his life.
Following major surgery to repair his stab wounds, the teenager remains here in hospital and will do for days to come. He has a long road to recovery ahead of him physically, and perhaps an even bigger battle. Emotionally. Alan and his girlfriend, Cassandra Ross, appeared in court today. Both were refused bail. Alan's lawyer telling the court his client was acting in self-defence. What's your message to the people who have been arrested?
I don't think I have one at the moment. In fact, I don't want to give them any message. We've both decided not to give any bad people any of our energy.
Dimity Clancy, NBN News.
They're two of the world's most powerful leaders, and right now Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are in final preparations for their highly anticipated summit. The US president has repeatedly called the investigation into Russian meddling with the 2016 election as a witch hunt, but says it will be on the agenda in Helsinki.
At his golf course in Scotland, with snipers in towers and officers on the ground, Donald Trump preparing for Putin by putting. Protesters were outnumbered by police at the course, but in Edinburgh, Donald Trump has got to go, say hey! Hey! Oh! More than 10,000 demonstrators took to the streets. The protests have followed the president across Europe, and they're preparing for them in Helsinki, where the Trump-Putin summit will take place on Monday.
There have been some other big meetings in Finland before, with the East and the West meeting, so it's not the first time.
The meeting follows 12 Russian intelligence operatives being indicted for interfering with the 2016 presidential election. In a series of tweets, Donald Trump blamed the FBI, the so-called deep state, then Barack Obama, saying it had nothing to do with the Trump administration. But from inside the president's camp,
I think I probably am the person referred to.
Longtime friend and political operative Roger Stone admitting he is referenced in the indictment and was in touch with the hackers during the election campaign, but denying he colluded with them.
Based on content, context, and timing, it's benign, it's innocuous.
President Trump has vowed to raise the hacking with President Putin when they meet.
Israel has launched its most powerful attack in Gaza since 2014. It's after Hamas militants in the Palestinian territory fired dozens of rockets across the border. Israeli military carried out more than 40 airstrikes, killing 2 Palestinian teenagers. 2 people have been treated for smoke inhalation following a house fire at Weston this morning. Flames took hold of the Davies Close property just before 10 o'clock. The blaze was so ferocious it caused part of the roof to collapse. The cause of the fire isn't yet known. Police are investigating. A disqualified driver has been charged with 30 offences following a lengthy pursuit across Newcastle. The 27-year-old man is accused of stealing 2 cars in an attempt to evade police, as Tyson Cottrell reports.
This pursuit spanned suburbs across both Lake Macquarie and Newcastle and began at around 10:30 yesterday morning after police received reports of a stolen Audi in the Charlestown area. The police helicopter was called in and tracked the car down to New Lambton. Polair then tracked the Audi as it travelled to Lambton, then back to New Lambton, onto Rankin Park and finally to Tyrrell Street at Wallsend, where it was abandoned. The 3 occupants then went on to steal a Suzuki Swift before driving off. With Polair still watching from above, the car was spotted travelling from Wallsend through to Minmai, Lenigan and then onto the motorway before exiting onto the Wallsend Link Road. The Suzuki was last seen driving off into bushland and was later found abandoned. A search of the area by police involving officers from the dog squad resulted in the arrest of a 27-year-old man and an 18-year-old woman. They were taken back here to Newcastle police station for questioning. Police say investigations are still ongoing.
The hunter has shivered through one of the coldest days in recent memory, with the mercury falling well below freezing in some parts. While it meant getting out of bed was that little bit more difficult, it also made for a picturesque start to the day.
The sun was up, so too the early risers. But one thing that wasn't, the temperature.
Yes, very cold. Very, very cold. 3 degrees.
There was no fighting it. Today was bitterly cold.
And the boys went out surfing, and I just watched. And it was so cold that your fingers started burning, and your toes, and they were just going numb.
Tough perhaps, but there's no denying the weather is a topic of conversation. Social media exploded with images capturing the freezing temperatures in pictures. From Neath to Gilliston Heights, Barraville, Lake Macquarie and Currumbong. It was so cold, it brought a new meaning to frosted tips. While some found relief in the ocean baths, feathered friends kept away from bird baths. The coldest place in the Hunter was Cessnock, which dropped to minus 4.9 degrees at around 5:15 this morning. It wasn't much better at Scone Airport, with a low of minus 4.3, or at Merriwar, the mercury plunging to 3.6 degrees below zero. A chilly start also in Newcastle, 4.7 degrees the low at 7:10. But don't throw away the woolies just yet. There's more of the same headed our way for the next few days at least.
And we'll have more on the cold snap a little later in the weather. A giant of the sea breached in spectacular fashion at Port Stephens today. It wasn't at sea though, rather on the shore, with 1,308 people coming together to form a 100-metre long humpback whale at Fingal Bay. As well as celebrating the annual whale migration, this year's event saw an increased focus on marine conservation and education. More than 30,000 of the mammals are currently heading north in their migration.